right, Kelvin, I got 231. You want to get started?
Our first guinea pig, Jackie went ahead and sent an email in a couple of weeks ago from Cutwell asking in MES or time and expense entry when an employee enters a non-conforming quantity in labor detail, they want to pop up a box to remind them to add information in the labor notes box. So Jackie's used the tracing option trying to identify the correct business object and could not figure it out if they were using the correct one. Tracing only seems to work when they test in time and expense entry, but when they test in MES, the tracing does not produce any keystroke info. The tracing in MES, when you do an end activity, should turn around and still have a trace file telling you what methods and tables are being called here. But you could do a data directive on the labor detail table that when a non-conforming quantity is greater than 0, display a reminder message that the user should be filling this out. The drawback is, in order for that to fire, they would have already clicked OK. So the data directive, you'd have to intercept it and terminate if the notes are blank, and then stop the write from being made.
And Jackie, you're unmuted if you want to speak up to that. Oh, Jackie doesn't have a mic. Okay. Did that get your question answered, Jackie? We'll give her a little bit here in case she's typing. She says she'll give it a try. Aaron Chandler put up an alternative would be a screen customization perhaps, so that when you tab out of the fields, you could get to there. And Tim, what about creating a rule for requiring a labor note to be entered unless the quantity is less than 1?
That would make sense too. You could also do that on the update method of the transaction. That if the labor quantity is less than 1 or greater than 1, you have to have a labor note with context. The only drawback that I might see, Tim, people doing is they're going to go back to the I'll put a period in the field. The same with like engineering. You have to tell me what you changed in engineering workbench, and people will just type in NC, no change.
All right, sounds like we got one down.
Okay, latitude. A couple of fonts are net printing properly. The fonts in question are installed on both server side and the client side, but when print previewed or printed, they don't display properly. The information does appear, but in a generic font. Make sure the font is also set up for your PDF software. If the font's not set up for your PDF software, it's not going to display you anything. It's going to default back to the other. Now, most PDF software is going to feed off the Windows fonts. That would have to be on the client PC. If you're doing this with an SSRS report, that would have to be on your SQL server if you're in a multi-server environment. The SQL server is where the SSRS renders and generates the PDF. If the font's not there, it's going to default back to a different one. Fred, can you elaborate? There's also something about installing fonts in SSRS, I believe.
Yeah, but Aaron points out some fonts are licensed and not embeddable. Yeah, depends on if you're trying to embed the font into your PDF or not. When you install a font, which I'm assuming you did this already, Matt, you put it onto your SSRS server, and then you would reboot the server because it has to get picked up. There is also, when you go to install the font, you want to install it as admin, I believe it is, or you could run into an issue there. And I did unmute you, Matt. I thought I had one other thing. I'm looking at my knowledge base because it seems like I ran into this for somebody else where I had to install the font in a specific way because it wouldn't show up for most users. It would show up for me and worked for me, but it wouldn't show up for a general user. And it ended up being that I had to install that font as an admin. I'm trying to search my knowledge base that I've got here, see if I can find anything on that, because it just dawned on me about that one too. You might want to check if it's showing up okay when you view the SSRS on the SSRS portal, then your font's installed okay on the machine. If it's not showing up when you go to do the PDF, then that's the font getting embedded into the PDF. So there's two possible spots where this could be showing up for you. Yeah, and I'm not finding it in my knowledge base either. Darn it. Okay.
Did that answer your question, Matt? Or at least get you started down the right avenue? We've unmuted you, but I think you still have yourself muted out. Okay, it's going to be kind of hard to help Matt here. He's not answering or unmuting you.
Matt,
which is
I'm going to throw
really rough. Go ahead.
I'm going to throw into the chat window a link to something about installing the font for all users, that there's a right-click install for all users when you do the fonts. So that could possibly be part of your issue too.
I was going to mention that, but thought it was probably obvious. Yeah, when you right-click, it's going to be installed for just me or for all users, and just be sure to always use all users. That's a Windows thing.
Awesome. Our next question that came in, I don't want to, because there are so many slides, I don't want to get stuck too far. Also from Matt at Latitude. So Matt, I hope you're there, otherwise you're going to be watching the video here. All of your users' print jobs are getting stuck in the immediate run request and will not execute until you restart the Epicor task agent service using services on the server. I think if we unmuted everybody, that all put their hands up and go, never heard this.
Yeah.
This is kind of a common thing. You can put a BPM on the task agent table, the system task table. When the system goes into immediate run request, have it recycle the service for you automatically, or only do it once or twice, because doing it 20 times in a row, if it didn't fix it the first two, it's not going to do it the next 18. But that may be another workaround to fixing this. I've seen people use that on the immediate run request issue. And that started back in version 9 and still continues.
Version 8.
Oh, there we go, even older.
And Matt, you have a single task agent. Why not put on multiple? We always recommend that people put on 3 task agents, just because there's really no downside. If one's got a problem or you have a lot of activity, you have the other 2, picking up, the slack.
Exactly. Or if one gets stuck, the others will keep moving. And Bill, if I didn't know better, I'd say you were reading my footnotes in my PowerPoint presentation here.
Never. Redundancy is always a good thing if you have the resources and it doesn't. There's no great cost to it. Build another task agent. It only takes 5 minutes or less. They're easy to make. Hope that helps, Matt.
Okay, Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and hold on that one. Kim White has a question there if they need multiple task agents on one server or on multiple app servers. Kim, you could be super redundant and put one on each. I would just say put all 3 on one server. This way, now, yes, if that one goes down, you're not going to get print services from the other. But if one server goes down out of 2, you got bigger problems than just printing's not coming out for people. I'm going to say printing would be your easy problem at that point. I'll go ahead and move on to our next one here. Shahan from Federal Phone. We have moved cost to DMR checked in company configuration. We noticed that once we create a DMR, it includes the cost for all the issued material for the non-conforming parts as well as the related subassemblies. They have more than one operation in the top level MOM, but in most cases, the subassemblies are linked to the final operation of the top level method. If they create a nonconformance in the first operation, why the DMR will include the cost of the subassemblies, which are still waiting to be consumed. And I'm going to throw this out. If anybody has this type of issue, I've not heard where it's putting it to the wrong or pulling in other subassemblies for the non-conforming. This is the first for me, Shahan. The DMR should be for the level that you're on or any levels underneath, not for all.
Do we know what version this is? Because I've not heard of this either.
It's going to be 10 or 11 from them at Federal Foam.
Let me find if Shahan is still on here. He
Yeah,
is not.
And Shahan, I would know if you get this on a video. I would suggest have you submitted this as an issue to support? Because this, I would say, this is not functioning as designed.
Tammy, I unmuted you in case you're around. Tammy from Federal Foam.
And then Robert LeGrand turned around and also questioned, is this a co-part?
I don't think Federal Foam uses co-parts that I know of, but I could be wrong on that. And Tammy looks like she may be away from her desk, so.
Trying to reply to a question here online. Okay.
I see a question that would multiple task agents cause issues with multiple company? Have not seen that, should not.
Yep, I just replied back to that person for you.
Oh. Okay.
Tammy, are you out there?
She's unmuted, but it doesn't look like she's active at her desk.
Oh, this is kind of bad. 2 in a row. Person's not there to reply. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on here, but I haven't run across this DMR issue. Kathy G from Ellison Watts would like to be able to allow purchasing department to add approved suppliers for a part number without having access to part or supplier maintenance. Is there a way to enable the actions menu in the tracker or maybe add a menu item for approved suppliers? Well, come on, this is low-hanging fruit. I figured someone would jump at this one.
I'd say, how about an updatable BAQ?
Bing, 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 we have a winner. As we saw in Bruce's demo earlier today, you can update those records or maintain those records with an updatable BAQ. That would only give access to the table and fields that you want them connecting to.
Yep, you can choose what you want to expose to be updatable, and you can choose what you want exposed to be seen.
And then
you
also run what business rules when you want it to update.
And you can also put security against the dashboard to see who gets it. So you have all the above.
I'm trying to zip down here. Kathy, I'll go ahead and unmute you, which may be a little bit difficult because it also shows you're not at her desk. Oh, this is kind of weird. I feel like Big Brother with GoToMeeting today. Kathy, are you out there? Okay. When you look through the video, you'll find this in here, but adding an updatable BAQ would be the best way to give them access to a piece of the pie, but not the whole thing.
I'm gonna unmute Lori Welch. There you go, Lori. I think she's got something to contribute here.
I'll go back up a page.
Lori, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear
There
me?
you are.
Okay.
Yep.
I just created a different menu option for them to use and then just highlighted like 90% of the options that they're not supposed to be touching. And then, so then you just click those off in the customization. So you can disable entire tabs that you don't want them having access to. So I just did it with a customization.
That would
works.
work too.
Thanks, Lori.
Okay.
Eventually, Lori, we're going to draft you in on this panel. You chime in at every meeting, so eventually we're just going to draft you in.
I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, you're gonna scare her for speaking up, Cal.
Okay, the next one came in from Richard from North Coast Container. He would like to simplify some of the user interactions with forms for repetitive tasks by combining tabs into one form. And for our STC, how would we include a quick search onto the form so you can rapidly access the records? The Job Traveler program. I'd like to combine the selection tab, the filters into one form and include a quick search of that one form to select multiple jobs. Richard, I would just turn around and put a shortcut to the search window. So you can put a keystroke to open the search window and set a custom search or a quick search as your default. When they press like Control S, it would open up the search window or give them a function key to do that. Then you can turn around and allow them to enter their parameters and hit search, or if it's like a BAQ returning certain data, they can just select that from the list, hit search, and then pull back those records. I've also seen other people turn around and put together a BAQ quick search and have the form auto run it and auto populate with the results of that search. So when they go in, it's already ran the query and pulled back the 57 jobs for them to work with. Then they're all available from the navigation dropdown. And I didn't look. I could be talking to my monitor all by myself here.
No, we hear you.
Yes, but can Richard?
Richard's unmuted.
Sounds like he's trying to talk. I see a green mic come on.
That better?
There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm still, you know, ideally it's one pane of glass that doesn't have to open up into other windows. But I do like the idea of a BAQ that I might be able to embed into it to pull the records.
And then just do, when you go to the options tab, there should be a load or perform quick search. And you can turn around and specify that it automatically runs that query. So like I'll have people, buyers, when they go in, automatically populate the suggestion workbench by just pulling everything back. If the record's out there, you're supposed to buy it. Inspection processing. If there's an inspection queue, you're supposed to inspect it. They don't need to go hit search, then click the search button, then hit select all, then hit OK. When you can just have the form auto load it, now everything is at their fingertips when the screen loads.
Okay, you gave me some ideas to think about.
Awesome. Let me see here. Tina in our chat today threw in for the Stump the Chump. Trying to do a date calculation involves two different tables. Can bring the project end date into the task window using customization, but the data isn't held there. It's being written through the epi binding. How does she bring the value of project end date to project task so she can apply the calculation that would be the project end date? At that point, Tina, I would turn around and use the epi binding and save that to a context field. You can set it so that, yes, you have an epi binding, you have a field tied to it, but you can write that back to the BPM call context and save that in like date 01. And then compare date 01 to the project end date. So while you're not really getting the other one, you're telling it to take it from the epi binding, put it in the call context, and then you're using the call context variable in your calculation. It's a little bit roundabout, but Epicor gives you those 20 characters, 20 dates, 20 numbers in the BPM call context. You can use them for whatever you want. That may be a perfect way to grab data out of an epi binding stored in the call context and then do your math against the call context field to your other fields on the screen.
And Tina, you're unmuted if you want to chime in.
Oh, I'm furiously taking notes, so. Okay, I guess it's something I'll have to look up. I'm kind of new to the whole Epicor scene, so you're throwing some words at me that I'm not familiar with, so I will do some research.
Not to worry, if you do a search on epi binding on the YouTube channel, you'll find 3 or 4 videos about how to set fields to the epi binding.
Okay, yeah, because I did a foreign key view on the project task table and brought in the project end date. So it's displaying, but it doesn't actually write to the database. It's just displaying it because it's just a foreign key view. So I don't have any data to do my calculation with. So that's what I was hung up on.
There you go. And
Are you doing data customization?
Pardon?
I did a foreign key view and added a user field through customization. And I'm displaying the project end date on the project task tab, sheet, whatever. But like I said, it doesn't actually write any data to the project task table. It's just like a display mechanism. So I have to somehow be able to get that date from the project table into the project task table.
And you're trying to get it into the project tax table to do a calculation in a BAQ or somewhere else, or are you trying to do the calculation right there on the screen?
I was going to do a data directive and do a set field in there. Yeah.
Okay. If it's a data directive, you can just look up the project in your data directive based on the information available on the task. So you don't have to write it to the table. You can just simply do a query in your data directive, do a query out to the project table and look up that end date.
Yeah, I tried that. Excuse me. I must have done it incorrectly. Okay, well, I'll keep plugging along and seeing what I can, how I can connect these two things and do that calculation.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Gina.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Pierre from Polymos, starting to play with the REST helper of Kinetic and wanted to test to get the session list of active users, but all he can see is a post, not a get, and was wondering why. Not trying to write, but to read, maybe was looking at the wrong business object because it does say it returns all session lists. Oops. Okay, back to that screen.
And it is a post. It takes no parameters. It doesn't update anything. So you're not missing anything, Pierre. It's just they did it as a post instead of a get.
So this is because Epicor used to be written using WCF and it did not respect the rules of REST. It does not necessarily mean it's going to write anything. It just means that it's running as a facade in front of the WCF object, and the WCF expects a post. So it's not really REST native yet. Epicor is going to be REST native eventually, and I believe in 2022 point something that some of these get methods that are posts will now show us get. But it is simply a facade in front of the WCF implementation.
Okay, but then because I tried the post to run it and it didn't give me any results, so that's why I was posting the question.
I just ran mine.
Mine worked okay.
Yeah.
What version of Epicor?
12.2.4. I mean 11.2.4.
So that's, hold on.
21.2.
2021. Yeah.
Okay, 2021.2. Let me switch to that one, but it worked fine on 2022, so I suspect.
Okay. Let me get it again then.
Are you using V1 or V2 of the API?
Yeah, that's the V2.
V2, okay. And you do have an API key, I'm guessing, set up correctly with no scope?
Yes, yes.
Okay. let's see. Because I just tested it in 2022 point, whatever the heck it is, the newest one, and that worked fine. But I'm running it on 2022.1. Yeah, worked fine for me on V2 and V1.
Okay,
See. Is it get session list, right? That's what you're trying to run?
Correct. Basically,
Yeah.
I want to know who's active currently in the system.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it worked fine for me, both V2 version V1 and V2 on 2021.2.10.
Okay, then I'll test it again. And,
It doesn't take any
actually,
parameters. It's just a simple post call.
I did this under the RPC.
Yes, RPC. Yep.
Get session list.
Mhm.
I tried out. I have to go back again. My key. Okay, continue. I'll come back with a comment later on. Then.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next one we have is in from Greg W. in the chat window here today. Anyone using shop load report, and they're trying to accurately track work load hours that are scheduled out from the current week to following weeks. The current week should include the remaining load from the previous week, but it doesn't. This is where you end up building your own. I'll see a lot of people complain about what Epicor calls the current column is not what they think should be in the current column. This also applies to the aging reports, where I'll see what's future, what's current. And they're like, these are not the right dates. You have to look at what the dates are and what was written. The shop load report is no different for this. What's in the current, most people I know use shop load for future, not for the current week. For the current week, they'll look at something like priority dispatch.
Greg,
Yeah,
you're
correct.
muted.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's correct. That's what we found is there's an option to choose infinite for the first bucket, which we did, except that we realized it was including some things in that first bucket that weren't even approved jobs that should be in the load. There were a lot of quoted things that were that we didn't expect to be, included in the load yet. So it didn't work just with that toggle. So I have started to look at A, B, a Q to try to pull together that same information. Part of the trouble there is getting to the right table and finding the right source for accurate, load information. But I was just curious if that was something that anybody had any experience with. I know it's a kind of a canned SSRS report that was with the system when we got it. So
Yeah, the canned report is, like I said, I'll see people use that for future weeks or the period that they put in there. But generally for the current week, they'll go to like the shop priority dispatch report. The other thing you can do, I think if you put it in days mode, are you able to see the current day and past day?
I'll have to try that. Typically been looking at it for weeks.
Use day, because then it's smaller buckets.
Okay.
Just it doesn't go out that far. It only goes like 4 or 5 days over.
Okay, I'll take a look at what it looks like in the day mode.
Awesome, Greg, and you can just stay on.
Yeah, I got a couple other
here because you barraged me with a few here.
Yeah, I've been working in this for a few months now, and these are a few things that I spent some time on and just trying to get down to. So yeah, the sales territory maintenance, again, I'm not sure whether others have experience with this, or we have 10 salespeople and 200 customers, and they're all kind of divided into buckets by territories. And when we have a change in the salesperson, we change the territory in the sales or in the territory maintenance screen, but that doesn't seem to cascade to changing the customer information or the current jobs.
Greg, there's an actions menu that says reassign. Did you
Okay.
run that part as well?
We did in test, and it seemed like we had some inconsistent results with that.
Okay, because that should reassign the opportunities that are out in the hopper to the new person over it.
Yeah, I know that we did try that, but I'll I'll look at it again. We do have a test version of the system that we can play around with. So
I'll see people complain because it doesn't go through the CRM tasks and assign them to the new people. Those are still
Right.
stuck where the task was.
see, we're not really even using it for CRM at this point. So it's really
Okay.
more just about how which salesperson shows up for a customer in particular. If it shows up on the quote, salesperson's name would be on the quote. We want to make sure those names are correct if there's a change and that kind of thing. So
The
again,
reassign the salesperson should be doing that.
Should do it. All right.
Yes. And I want to say that was on the actions menu.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So
Okay.
So we'll give that a try, and I'll see if I can confirm that and test.
Okay. The other would be, worst case scenario is taking an export with like a BAQ. Here's the list of the old salesperson on the quote,
Yeah,
and doing a DMT update, reassigning them to the new code.
that's interesting because somebody previously who's no longer with us looked like that was the workaround that they came up with, because we could find, and I do see a BAQ that's already out there where somebody was reassigning territories through that method. So I'm aware of that as an option, and that's what we could probably do. I just was curious if the method that looks like it's supposed to be there to reassign a territory, if anybody knew or could verify if that was working properly. But try it again, or we can fall back on the BAQ.
Yeah, the one I've seen most commonly with that complaint is it updates the salesperson but doesn't reassign the tasks.
Yeah.
Because tasks are not the same.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Sound like a Muppet here, but moving right along. Hey, Greg, you got another one.
I do. This one's a little more interesting, I think, in terms of using BAQs and something we're trying to do to save a lot of time. We've found that
my other comment is an updatable BAQ to update the salesperson on all of them there. So.
Oh, is that what they're all saying? Yeah.
That would be the other. I would say use an updatable BAQ, pull back all the ones that are assigned to the sales rep, reassign to this, update all the rows in the BAQ, and hit save.
Okay. Easy enough. So, yeah, this one, we are getting larger quantities, and even with quantities in our system, everyone has a separate quote. Everyone has a separate sales order. Everyone has a separate. We use tasks, or not tasks, but cases. But we've developed or been working on an updatable dashboard to allow customer service to approve, say, 200 quotes all at one time, by inputting the purchase order number, the need by date, the ship method, that kind of thing. And that seems to be working. And we're extending that to other things where, for example, if we need to go back into the quote after it's already been closed and say update need by date or purchase order or something like that, it requires to reopen the quote, which we can do in the BAQ with the checkbox or the true false, and go ahead and make the change, and it'll do that. But to finish it, to close that quote again, it doesn't seem to do that in the BAQ. I've tried to just do the reverse of what we did when we opened it, and it doesn't close it. So we've had to manually go into 200 jobs and close the quote again after we made changes to them, with the BAQ.
Are you using functions in Kinetic?
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. So
You said one function requires to open the quote. Are you saying a method?
Requires to
is that what you
open the
mean when
quote.
you say a function, or did you write a function that goes out and updates it?
We wrote an updatable BAQ
Okay.
and a dashboard that goes out and updates and it basically, if they're all true because they're closed, it changes it to false to reopen them. And then at the same time, now that the cases or the quotes are open, we can change a need by date or change a purchase order number or whatever we need to change, and that's fine, it does that. But if we even on a next step on a rerunning the BAQ after that to go back and close those, make those falses back to true, it doesn't work that way.
Gotcha. So the best way to do that is going to be in your updatable BAQ. You can run a post-processing BPM that goes through and closes all the quotes that need to be closed by invoking the respective business object. There's a business object on the quote. The quote business object has a call that's just like close quote. That's all. That's the call. So what I would do is I would just do your UBAC like you did normally, but then you can go into advanced. There's a button on the updatable BAQ that allows you to go to advanced BPM editor, and after update you can put a post-processing BPM that loops through your result set and invokes that close quote for the ones that need to be closed.
And that should do it, do you think? Different. That's different than
That's different
rerunning
than the
the updatable
checkbox,
BAQ to reverse it? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that's different than the checkbox. That's calling the business object directly and telling it, hey, I want to close this quote.
Okay.
There's one more thing, Greg, that you might want to look at. The reason that it's not being able to when you say close the quote, are you saying re-quote them, right?
No,
Well,
just to mark the quote as closed so that it doesn't.
Because I was going to suggest that you have a look in your company config if you have it, if you have the audit log on and that it's selected to prevent changes, because that prevents a save when you requote. I don't know, that could be an issue.
Yeah, well, I think the purpose in closing the quote is so changes won't be made. But again, we do need to make changes, and in doing so, we open the quote again. So it's.
Well, no, that can prevent changes and turn the audit log on, forces someone to write into a text field when they requote it. And if that logic's firing, if you just deselect that may fix it.
Oh, you think it may be requiring like a text or something that I'm not aware of or whatever? Yeah.
It's one checkbox to save and try. So, and why not?
Yeah, try in your test system.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, this particular BAQ that we've been working on for updating multiple quotes is a big time saver, and it's an important thing for us. So I appreciate your help.
And Jose got you the call. I threw that into the chat for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next one from Marta here. Was interested in how you send that from Epicor to bartender in Kinetic, Karen. And Marta, I'm trying to find you here in the list as quick as I can.
She's
You're
unmuted.
unmuted.
Oh, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
What?
Okay, yeah, I was, right now, we're on 10.2, and we are working towards Kinetic this year, and currently we send to bartender mostly from putting a print button on the screen, and I'm doing it in code with using StreamWriter. And I was just, when I saw the title of that session, I thought I was curious if in Kinetic, if it was different, if, I know you can't write as much code or you have to use functions.
Yeah, I haven't, sorry, I haven't tried to do any customizations that export from Kinetic, but I expect if you can get a file to output, it should be the same. But yeah, I haven't tried it.
Are you cloud, Marta? Or are you on-prem?
No, well, right now we're on-prem. We're trying to be on our own Azure cloud, but
that's fine. But that's still on-prem.
Is your current solution a customization? that you write the code from the customization to a file?
Right.
Yeah.
Our
So you will
warehouse
have to move. You
likes a
will have
lot
to
of
move
fields.
that to a BPM. You'll have to move that to a function or a BPM. It's what we had to do when we went to Kinetic. So we do print PCIDs to bartender, and so we had to do the same thing. So basically, we have a button in Kinetic that invokes a function server side that basically does the same thing. It does a stream writer, writes a file, drops it into the watcher for bartender, but that happens server side now because you can't write to files in the browser.
Okay.
But it's a pretty simple, straightforward change. So it's you can almost pretty much copy paste your bartender code from your customization into a function, and then just invoke the function from Kinetic.
Okay, I'll give that a try. Thanks.
And Marta, if you need, at the last user group meeting, I think that we had virtual, there was training on how to do functions, how to set up libraries, how to set up functions, how to put your code in. So those videos should be available up on YouTube.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Moving on, we have David H. also in chat. Can you show how you would have a user in Epicor print a label that would then generate a text file, or do you have to do that in an external process?
And David's not online anymore.
Well, to answer his question, I mean, it would either be using the built-in Epicor labels, and which means that you would kind of do an auto print based on whichever label you're printing, or you do a customization like they were mentioning with the stream writer to output a file.
Yep.
Text
or
file.
like Bill was showing us, where you can choose the file type you want written and spit out. So David, hopefully go back and watch the video here because we answered your question for you. James, also in chat, sent over, switched from one barcode system to another. We're beginning to look at implementing a barcode system, and the horrors of having to change because we picked the wrong one are now occurring to us. Okay, who on the video has not picked the wrong software at one time and gone back and picked another? They already use a part number with an asterisk, which it's not a bad idea for barcode 3 of 9, because you have to put the asterisk around the barcode 3 of 9. But when you go to a QR code or other symbologies, you don't have to put that in there. The symbology is going to be predicated on what you're using and how you're integrating with it. So like I believe Karen had said, if you print a QR code on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, you can scan that from like 20, 30 feet away. Versus you're not going to scan a QR, code 39 record from that far away. I think it's max, what, 12 inches from the scanner gun? You don't get that much distance on a scan with a code 39. So different symbologies are going to have different capabilities. And if
I would
you're
say
working with inventory, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say if you are at the point where you haven't chosen a barcode, I would definitely go with something that has error correction like QR code. Because in the warehouse, people are gonna bump against your stickers, they're going to rip half of the label off, and QR code has error correction where you can lose about 25 to 35% of the barcode and still scan it. So I would unless your barcode scanner can't handle QR, which I think most of the modern ones can, I would definitely go with something like QR or something at least with error correction on it.
James, I see you're unmuted. Are you out there? You're really faint.
Really quiet.
That's helpful. Partly what I was looking for is any big gotchas that anybody's experienced over the years, and you just threw some out there that are really good for us.
QR codes are also really good because you can store like 5,000 characters in one code. So you can get an awful lot of data up in that little code and still not be printing real huge, versus a code 128 PDF 417, the code 3 of 9. That's just going to make the barcode really, really wide.
Yeah.
The other thing I've mentioned to people in the past, the code 3 of 9 is only about 80% accurate. So if you printed the label 10 times, scanned it 10 times, you're only going to get 8 good reads or so. It also is dependent on the white space between the lines. So if your printer's not calibrated or cleaned, now if you tell me you're in a real clean plant and there's no floating debris or oil in the air, rock on, you can spit out a label pretty accurately. But if you're in a manufacturing facility with a lot of dust and particles, your label is not probably going to be read every time you scan it.
Oh yeah. We're in the ladder.
James, and to everyone's point though, if you're just going to be getting new software, definitely, go with a 2D because you're going to future-proof yourself. If you go with a linear, you're just in multiple codes. You can put it all in one. It's a no-brainer there.
Bear with me, folks. Got it. Okay, our next one here is from Amin. Is Integration Builder an additional module that they need to purchase? Karen, this was regarding your bartender session.
Right, so every company that I've worked with in the bartender software has all of those apps. I don't know if you can purchase it without it, but you saw the list of 12 apps that we had on the one slide. It's included with Bartender, and it's included with the free trial version also.
Awesome. That makes that a whole lot easier. Okay. Jackie again. Unfamiliar with the purge function. Can somebody elaborate?
And Jackie's unmuted.
Real easy, Jackie. It begins with letter P, and then it's very urgent.
Yeah, Jackie, are you talking about there's a personalization purge, there's a database purge, there's
No, the purge for the changelog, the purge and summarize we were talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, what I was talking about there is that's. I'm not entirely certain on that. So if anyone else can weigh in, put it.
Calvin's pulling it up.
Yep, I am looking at it too.
Don't kill the Kinetic user. So my little changelog down here is where I would go ahead and select this from the database purge and summarize, Jackie. The parameters that you're looking for, the date, the cutoff date, if you're only doing this for one company. Go ahead and set your filters here. I would also recommend doing this in test because once the records are gone, they're gone. Thank you, Jose. I was like, somebody has to back me up on that. I'm like, this is a one-way dump it. Once it's out of there, you ain't going to see it again. This is similar to companies that require Sarbanes-Oxley allowing people to delete a record. It takes the log with it when you delete it. So most of those types of companies, publicly traded, won't allow a deletion of a record. You can void it, but you can't delete it. This does remove the changelog.
It does. And it's the only checkbox I have ever seen used in this screen because the other ones are insane.
Oh, sorry, I was looking for the product configurator. The configurator. Hey.
Well, maybe the configurator inputs.
Yeah, hopefully they fix it and it doesn't delete the sales order with it anymore.
Yeah, so be careful. All I would say is be careful on the screen, because if you check any of those other boxes, you know, like particularly things like part transaction and journal details, your finance and your inventory team are going to come for you with pitchforks.
And Jackie, I just saw your note. You guys are in 10.2. The screen looks almost identical. It's just in the classic mode instead of kinetic.
Yeah, like Jose said, if you check the part trend or the other ones, you're going to see how good your restore from backup works. That's what's going to happen there.
It does. I mean, all it does is it does exactly what it says, right? It's going to summarize your part trend records down to whatever the end of it was. You know, like if you summarize down to a date, it just takes the total for that date and keeps that one record there. But it does remove all the detail. And again, I have never met a company that was okay with that yet. Thought about it. Here's a classic screen if you want to click on that. Somebody over there.
So, and another question here from Neil. How often should you purge the log? If you want to put this on a recurring schedule and build your own little process for it, you could remove them daily so that it removes a period back in time. So 6 months ago, delete. Tomorrow, go back 6 months. This way, you're never telling the system to go purge 1 million records all at one time. You're saying go get rid of a day's worth or go get rid of a week's worth of info.
So I don't believe that this screen allows dynamic dates unless they fixed it in Kinetic. It is hard-coded. Yep, looks like they did not change that in Kinetic either.
Okay.
So basically,
so
you're going to delete it when delete it when your log is large or when you don't need the data any longer.
Or you can make it part of your maintenance. So we do quarterly maintenance on our server. That may be a good time to run this. It does take a while to run, by the way, because depending on how much you're logging, how many changes you're logging, particularly if you got reporting requirements, running this process will take a long time. But it really depends on how often you want to. You also can just let it grow. If you have, storage is cheap, it doesn't really hurt anything.
Well, we're popping out of purple there. Yeah, get over it. And let's see here, Jackie. I think that did answer. Oh, darn. It's called database purge and summarize. Was that what it was? It's under system management, database utilities or something. I just closed Epicor and shut this.
It's under system management, purge cleanup routines.
There you go, Jackie.
And then database purge and summarize.
Awesome. Our next one is Bryce here. Is there a way to use variable send to email addresses on the auto print mail option?
Well, of course there is a way, but it's not out of the box. So, from the auto print email, you can't do the variable lookups in that temporary table like you can on the email send from a data directive. So I'll defer to the other gents. What's the best way to get there?
Routing, report routing. If you have the licensing for advanced print routing, that's the simplest thing.
And that was the thing that I recommended. You're typically gonna set back the false on your report parameters because it does default to true. And if you don't have routing, you don't want to have that on there. So.
Yeah. So advanced print routing will let you select from the report data set an email address to send to, and it will do that automatically based on your report style. So you can set that parameter through, and then that'll work. But that's really the easiest way without having to write a bunch of code.
And Crystal, did that also answer your question? You had a very almost identical question that you would put in at 3:25 this afternoon. Did that answer your question there as well? They were
Crystal,
looking
you're
to
unmuted.
dynamically choose an email address.
She says yes.
Awesome. Okay, and Marta is saying they use APR also for handling that. Next one, let me see here. I thought we had a couple more.
We have some. We have a couple in the question area, but I think that gets all of the ones that you had in your PowerPoint.
That covered all 20 in the PowerPoint. Now it's off to the question window.
So Jeff's got a question. When printing an SSRS report sized properly for a zebra printer label, it doesn't print correctly. It will basically overlap onto two labels. How can that be corrected? And Jeff's not on any longer, but typically when you see something like that, or you see like every other page is blank when you do a SSRS report, that means that your margins and your page size are off. So you need to look at how big your page is, and then go look at your margins, and then look at your report body and make sure that it's no wider than what you're allowed, or possibly when you're doing labels, make sure your report is no taller than what's allowed. And you've got to take into account what's your body size plus your margins, make sure that's less than your total page size. So that should help that one. You want to take the one from Robert? Will deal with his on the co-part because Tammy's back down further along, so we can answer Shahan's question there. Matt Heck is also back and can do his questions, but I think you'll see those in the question area. So the next question is from Kevin. How do you set up a keyboard shortcut to save in a Kinetic screen? Is there a keyboard shortcut defined for saving?
Hold on one second. Yeah, I need to get out of the presentation mode and pick up from, not that slide. It bounced back. Hold on one second, folks. Awesome. Okay, that was queued up.
So I'm trying to spin up my Kinetic here. I think they added keyword shortcuts in 2022 point something. It's very recent, so I don't know if they have any specifically defined for saving.
Manager in a manger.
In the classic screen, you could go under Tools, Options, and define it.
That's what I'm looking for here. Not see it in the personalized lovely world.
Yeah, I think that's something that's either coming in the new version or just was added to. I'm looking at the 2022 point, and I don't see it. Yeah, this is the latest one, 2022 point whatever the latest one is, and I don't see it in there. You may be able to add it through Application Studio, but that's probably more complicated than you want to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the auto search when it starts.
Control S. Hold on. So yeah, there's a preset. There's a preset. Hold on. There's a preset set of shortcuts on every screen. Control Alt H. If you hit Control Alt H, depending on what version you're on, there you go.
You got it.
Set, voila. So Control Alt H, I'm sure it's documented somewhere. If you open up not a report screen, but if you open up like order entry, it does have a shortcut for save, new, and things like that. It does appear to be the standard shortcuts, like Control S is for save and Control N is for new.
Personalization.
So Control Shift A is add new, Control Shift Delete is clear, Control Delete is delete, and so on. It does change. It's basically attached to each individual screen. So you have to hit the Control Alt H in order to see the list. And they are preset.
All right. And I believe our next one was Matt saying he's back for his questions.
Okay, Matt, back to the screen here. The fonts. Anybody remember what the answer was?
A couple of fonts not printing properly.
Yes.
Make sure
the fonts are installed to the SSRS server. Reboot the server. Make sure when you install the font, you install it for all users, which is a right-click install for all users. And then the question is the font missing when you view it on the portal, or is it missing when you view it on the PDF?
Yeah, and the key for me here in this specific example was install for all users. That was what I was missing.
Got it.
Yep.
And somebody had pointed out earlier, Matt, just in case it hits you, not all fonts allow embedding. So sometimes when you purchase a font or you find it on the web, they mark it as not allowing embedding. And you'll see it fine on the portal, but when you export as a PDF, you're not going to see it necessarily.
Gotcha, good to know.
And Jose, I just saw your link in the chat. I'll get that posted out to everybody too here.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that was earlier. No worries.
Sorry, missed it.
Yep.
Trying to keep track of too many windows.
Oh.
Come on, Fred. Be like me. 4 monitors and bring your iPad to work day. Just because you need a 5th. So Matt, your other question was immediate run request. Nobody understood what you were talking about. So what would you call this problem, Matt? Nobody's heard of it.
Yeah, so what I'm pretty sure our specific issue is with this is just a resource issue. So like I said, it works fine after a reboot, and it just starts timing out. I don't have a lot of resources assigned to that test VM just because it's test. So after enough time and enough queries, enough activity is taking place, and SQL has sucked up all the memory that it has access to, then the print engine just stops. So I'm guessing that that's just a resource issue, and then it won't be an issue in production actually.
Okay, the idea we threw out, do you have more than one task agent on that server? Or are you just running one?
I only have the one. I do know that in production, you know, the recommendation is to have the 3, and I will have that in production, but yeah.
Okay. And the fix in previous versions of Epicor where this never happened was write a BPM to monitor the sys task table, and when you see something go in that state, kick off a process that restarts your task agent service.
So I did
still
see
shared on Epi users. I want to say that was written and shared.
that has been written and shared. I have had experience though with this similar problem. We were not using SSO, but we were using we're trying to use the WCF endpoints, and there is a bug, and it's particular to a specific version. It's 2022.1 point something. We had the same problem where it just dies. The solution for that was to spin up a separate app server in the same box that is using the username authentication, not the SSO, and that fixed it. So there's specifically a bug with SSO and Active Directory and Azure authentication that we run into, where basically the system agent would run for a little while and then it would just crash. And you would see a crash reported in the server log. If you looked on the task agent, you would see that basically the service would stop for that particular agent. So the more permanent solution we found was to basically spin up a new app server, switch the binding to use username SSO channel or SSL channel or the Windows channel, and use a regular username and password account with an impersonation checkbox in the user account setup.
Yeah, which I am familiar with, and so if push comes to shove when we go live in production, well, yeah, I'll do that. I won't be happy about it, and it'll bother me every time I see it.
Well, in general, it is a good idea to have a separate app server to handle your system agent tasks anyways, because, for example, I'm sure as you're experiencing now, when you have to recycle your app server because something is not working, you're actually recycling the main app server and hurting your users. So it's good policy to have at least 2 app servers, one for your users to use and one for your task agent to use.
Yeah. Yep, I definitely agree. The side of me that sees our giant bill would tell Epicor like maybe they should just write it better so that we wouldn't have these workarounds. But that's the angry side of me. So
you shouldn't have to pay any more money for. Well, I guess.
No, I'm not. Yeah, obviously, separate. You know, you can set up as many app servers as you want, but.
Okay, I was just making sure. I was like, whoa.
Service we pay for every year, they wouldn't have workarounds in place. You just write better software. But
gotcha. Well, it has been fixed in the latest versions, right? So that's the whole shtick. But I agree with you. It is frustrating.
Thanks, guys.
We are successfully running now on their Active Directory Azure, the system agent in 2022.2.10.
I was going to say your forehead looked a little flatter, Jose. Next one, I see Kevin Barrow has a rather wordy comment up here. Application instance is an instance condition is not available in the cloud environment. They need a way to accomplish the same effect as the feature. Can you unmute Kevin, Fred?
Yep. One moment. All right, Kevin, you should be unmuted.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Good. All right, so I'm setting up data directives that I only want to run on my production environment. The application as an instance is one of the criteria you can have inside of your if statements, your condition statements. However, that is disabled in the cloud environment. It has been suggested that we go ahead and set up a function that basically checks the specific ISIS agent table or whatever it is. It's in the comment there. And I don't have that in front of me at the moment. But
file root
agent.
Yeah, and the file root path. And unfortunately, I cannot access, I cannot either bring that in to a method or data directive so that I can put the fill by query, because I cannot get that table set into the fill by query. So I can't do it directly inside of BP, inside the data directive. And I cannot call a function from a data directive inside of
You can't write custom code either?
that I'm not 100% sure. I know in multi-tenant you can't, but I think you
Oh,
can
multi-tenant.
in
You're
cloud.
single tenant though. Oh, you're cloud. Yeah, you should be able to write custom code. Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily know how to go about accomplishing that either. That is not a thing I have attempted yet. I've been doing Epicor for 8 months.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. So that flag is, well, if the flag doesn't exist, I assume the flag exists somewhere. So that flag is available in the database, and you should be able to reach it with a simple link query. I'm looking up. We do have one that we use. So I'm looking if I can find it. What worries me though is that it not being available in the cloud may mean that they do not actually check the box for you, which would not help you. I'm not that familiar with the SaaS offering though. Mm-hmm.
Can you also do this by pulling the session variable for isProd?
If it has it.
He's in cloud. He's got to be on the latest and greatest, and that field is in there.
Right, but they may not be using it. You have to check the box in the company configuration for that to be set.
Are you doing that, Kevin?
In cloud, I don't think we have access to change company configuration, or we may not have access to actually set up the company configuration. I don't recall. And I would be, is it automatically unchecked when I actually do a refresh of the database?
I suspect it probably is.
Or updated that record and set it to false when they copied prod to pilot.
They might.
Was it configuration or maintenance? I'm not seeing it on here, so I'm going to say it's company maintenance. Checkbox, bingo, is live.
Right.
Do you have that on your screen, Kevin?
All right, let me go check and see.
Because I believe when Epicor copies prod to pilot on the regular schedule, there are a handful of things that they go in and do. Turn off MRP, turn off taskgate. They turn off some of the things and they change the settings. I thought is live was one of them.
Oh. Okay. Michaela says, yeah, I've been informed that we do set that and we do have that on screen.
Okay.
That would be your best way to turn around and know what instance you're in. Now, it's not going to help you if you're in pilot, test, or third, because you guys have multiple instances, but it'll help you know that you're not in prod. Don't send emails.
That's actually what I'm trying to accomplish is don't send emails and don't do changelog.
Yep. That's what the box was added for.
Okay.
But the problem is that it doesn't show up.
Yeah,
we
it
still have
didn't
to check
until 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So everybody that wrote BAQs that are older than that point in time don't have this in any of their BAQs. But since you're new, this would be fine for you guys to use because any BAQs or BPMs that you're writing, this has to be there.
Okay, and how do, I was told that there might be that she thinks she knows how to do it, so that may go ahead and help me out.
Okay. And
did you want to jump back to Shahan since we've got Tammy around?
Sure. That's only one click. I was trying to hunt through the question list for the next one, but this was easier.
Tammy, I've unmuted you if you want to join in here.
I was saying this question came up earlier and I had not seen this issue before. And it had to do with moving the cost to DMR. And if they create a nonconformance on the first operation, DMR will include the cost of the sub-assemblies, which are still waiting to be consumed. I did not know that DMR turned around and grabbed everything. I thought it was this level.
Amy, are you there?
I didn't know if you had hit this before. I know you guys don't have super complex bombs there.
Sorry about that. I wasn't unmuted. So we did report this to support, and it is, what it's doing is the assemblies down the line, it's pulling the cost from them. So if we're doing the DMR on step 10 and we've got the assemblies on like step 30, when it's grabbing the material from 10, it's also pulling the cost from the assemblies. And even though they haven't even been reported, and we reported to support, and they said it's functioning as designed. And out in the AHA, there is another person that put a request out there. So our question is, if anybody that did hit this, if it's standard, you know, what do you suggest for trying to work around this? But if you haven't, no one's really seen it, that's odd. And we're in 700 and it's also in Kinetic 2022.1.
Yeah, but Tammy, I wouldn't recommend overriding it, the method directive or anything, because the costs in that DMR have to tie back to WIP also.
Exactly. We have no desire to go there. Yeah, it's very odd because it's giving us some huge cost at the DMR, and what we were seeing is some big variances with what corporate was coming up with their numbers and how the plants were coming up with some of their numbers. And then we really started digging into everything and then found this, that, you know, it really should have just had the material from step 10 in there, a little bit of labor.
Are you standard cost?
No. Yes, we are standard. I'm sorry.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out, I'm like, how can there be costs on assemblies you haven't worked on yet?
Well, it's not actual. It's they must be pulling the standard cost, the estimated cost there.
Now you could modify that with a DPM.
Either.
Then you could modify that with a data directive, enforcing that it's only pulling the sub-assemblies related to the operation and assembly you're on. Because if that sub-assembly 14 isn't related to operation labor operation 10, that sub-assembly should never be added into the cost of operation 10. It should only be any sub-assemblies that are linked to that operation. Yeah, now if they haven't been worked, do you include them or not? Because theoretically, if you're making a DMR at operation 10, you would have had those sub-assemblies to damage them. But if
Jackie's
you have
asking,
work the operation that has the sub-assembly linked to it, it shouldn't be pulling the standard cost because you haven't got any cost yet on that.
Yep, we agree.
This is where I'm going to go. Lori, are you out there?
Jackie's also got the question of, is the assembly issue to the job before you get to Op 30?
No.
No.
No, it's not. There's been no activity back past 10, and we've created it multiple times in our test environment too. You know, just making sure that we're working with the exact, you know, put the exact part and walk it through. And it's like, yeah, you wouldn't think it would have done it. We figured it was a bug. And
Lori, I believe you guys have multi-level bombs, don't you?
We have multi-level bombs, but I think on hers, did they have, theirs are related as full as assembly?
Say that again?
You're talking about a lower levels being pull as assembly, flagged as pull as assembly?
Are you doing pull as assembly?
Oh,
That
pull,
would be-
okay, I'm sorry. Maybe. That I haven't looked at which way for the falling, the ones that are at 30, do we have them pull as assembly or make as assembly? We might.
Because there's a difference as to how the system treats them when they're pull as assembly versus if they're just being issued from stock, even though they're subcomponents.
Yep, that is something we can look at and maybe make it behave differently.
Well, if they're pull as assembly and you're working on the next level up, the assumption is probably made that those lower level assemblies are done.
Yep.
Yeah, but
I
they
see
haven't
what you're
made them.
saying.
Those lower level assemblies are on future operations. They haven't been performed yet. So the other assemblies that it's rolling into the DMR costs are on operations that haven't even started yet.
But if they're lower level assemblies, then how can they not be started if the upper level is being produced?
If the subassembly is attached to operation 20 and not to operation 10, the cost for that subassembly shouldn't go into a DMR for an operation 10.
Do they have any reporting against operation 20?
No, she said no.
No.
Because we don't have anything that's set up right now as pull as assembly, but I've never seen that. With the
Well, I'll
material.
check that. That's something I can check into. That
Yeah,
maybe,
we're-
you know, they're assuming something with that setup.
Can you
That
share
makes-
that case or PRB number, Tammy, so we can put that in minutes of the note? Because there's a lot of people using multi-level bombs that may not be aware of this.
Yeah, and we'll give you the other company that put it out there in the ideas, or what is that called? Aha.
Yep. Ideas.
Okay. Yep. We'll get that to you, and then we'll see what we're set up as at those lower levels, or the 330 level. Thank you.
Awesome. We also have a Stump the Chump question that came in. Craig Rogers here. Is there a way to have a MOC in my demand is high enough to cover the MOC quantity, MOQ, but the demand is less than what is in the MOC value suggested PO, that's the remainder of the demand. So they want to have a minimum order quantity set up and have the system follow the minimum order quantity against the demand amount. Customization is all I'm thinking of. And I'm going to say is that minimum order quantity or monthly order quantity? Is Craig out there?
Just a moment, Craig. I'll unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, I'm here. So minimum order quantity. So say you have total demand in the system for 7,000. You have an MOQ at the site level of 3,000. I want to tell me buy 3,000, buy 3,000, then buy 1,000. But I
You want
can't
to buy
see
them
any
in
out of the
multiples.
box. Yeah, I can't. Normally would use minimum order quantity for that supplier. But they don't want to over order more than what we have total demand for. So let's just try and see if there's a way to do that. We are using MRP and PO suggestions, so I'd ideally
Anybody use the urgent planning for that? Because the urgent planning allows for a multiple and a minimum. But the regular horizon for purchasing only allows for a minimum. Anybody raise their hand on that one?
I don't see anyone.
That would be the only thing I could think of trying, is taking away the regular ordering and using the urgent planning settings as the regular, but specifying the multiple as well as the minimum. Are you seeing that on the part screen, Craig?
Yeah, and what does the multiple do?
That's supposed to be the quantities that you ordered in.
So you have to order, like if it's a 3.
Yeah, isn't that same
you
as
have to order
MOQ?
3, 6, 9.
Isn't that the same concept as minimum order quantity on the field right above it?
I'm trying to get into part entry here.
So your minimum order would be the least amount you can order. Whereas that other value is you have to order in blocks of. So you might have a minimum order of 3, you order in blocks of 2, which means you order in 2, 4, 6, 8. So you can never really order a minimum of 3 in that essence.
Yeah.
But it's not going to catch your remainder issue.
Yeah. That same concept is using your lot sizing, right? Your multiples.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what I was looking at too, but it still doesn't solve the problem of preventing over ordering.
Yeah, it wouldn't prevent the over order, because if you ordered like 3 before and your minimum order is 5, I mean, you could set it to your quantity has to be 5. I'm using the wrong term there, but you could order in blocks of like 5, 10, 15.
Yeah. I got you.
On the new PO suggestion, most people I know when they go through this are looking at the part time phase to make sure, when do I need the parts, where do they have to be. I don't remember if time phase showed the urgent or only the regular planning. Can you bear with me here while I open it? Sure, let's buy this part. It's wonderful. I think I double clicked too much. There we go. Min max, it's not going to show me the multiple or the minimum, but I would almost say add those fields here so that the buyer can see that, what is min, what's multiple, when they're processing their suggestions. We're not necessarily going to get the system to do it, but at least when they're processing the suggestion, they'll see what the purchase sizes are. They'll have to adjust the suggestion to meet those without writing a customization that goes through your suggestions and fixes them. But at least would give them visibility of what they should be ordering and in what quantities. Would that work?
Yeah, that's what I was going to have them do. I was just trying to find a way to system drive it, automatically drive it.
Did we lose Jose? I turned my head and he was gone.
Yes. Yes, I think he had something come up.
Okay. Jackie had a question regarding our reassigning of salespeople. And are you assigning the salespeople at the ship to level?
This had to do with the territory question.
You got it.
I forget who had the territory question.
I think that was, come on, they had 3 questions in a row. Greg. Greg W. had that in there. Where is my panelist list?
Greg's unmuted.
You there, Greg? I'm not showing Greg as active.
Okay. Let's jump to the next one then.
Okay, Jim McCoy's question. If it's a BAQ report, you can pass the distribution list in as a part of the BAQ.
I think that was for passing the email
Address. Yep. That would definitely work for that.
And we've got Bryce.
And Bryce is saying immediate and queued are options on the auto print module and data directives. Not sure what they're used for, but you can pass queued in as a parameter when sending reports. Have you done anything with the queued reports, Bill?
Nope, just with immediate. I can't see what. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to queue them, I guess you want to batch it to send everything at a certain time or something. But I have not done anything with it.
Okay. Otherwise, I would see queued maybe like a batch of invoices or customer statements, something you're sending out in mass.
Or it could be immediate would be for like labels. You need it now. Those have a higher priority in processing than things that are just queued. So queued will get handled at a lower priority than the immediate items for assist task scheduling. I'm guessing. I'm not sure.
Okay. Matthew Heck has another one here. Anyone come up with an ingenious way on how to track how often menu items are actually launched?
Well, Matt, you could, on the form load, you could put in some sort of logging to a UD table.
Or to the change log.
Evil.
Yeah,
I do know.
The use case here is that I have one end user who likes to be helpful. And so he'll write BAQs and attach them to dashboards that he insists will be shockingly useful and that everyone will want to, to use. And I'd love to have the ability to, do that for him and then a year later be like, hey, end user, it was launched 3 times all by you in the past 12 months. So you're an incredibly useful thing. Maybe I don't have to waste my time deploying it as a new menu item. And it would just be helpful in other ways, to see like, okay, are people actually following our workflow? Because, all right, no one's launching this menu item, so maybe they don't know about it. Maybe they need to be trained on it, that sort of thing. So I've always thought it'd be cool to be able to see like, okay, how many times did they actually launch this thing? And who did it?
I've seen several people ask for it so that they could find out what modules are getting used and what isn't. One, to affect their maintenance bill.
Yeah.
But 2, like you were saying, for training, are people following our processes or are they not aware of something? And I have not seen an answer for that yet. I would say you could put that out onto the idea board and try and get some people to vote for it.
Could come up with a nice little gotcha and impressive marketing campaign to get those votes.
There you go. Go to Insights, start carrying your banner around.
There we go.
A system activity log, you could do that on a table, but that's not necessarily on the menu table. But adding a customization, where'd menu maintenance go? There you are, Bugger. The menu maintenance is based on a table. If you wanted to drop your UD 100 or one of your related tables off of this, You could access the extended properties, link that other table, and then when people open it, track it. It's just you'd have to turn around and set that up on all of them. Now, you wouldn't probably do this on everything because who cares how many times people went into part entry? You know that's busy and used. But for
Right.
tracking your BAQs, that might be another way to do it, because I've seen people do like customizations on the customization screen so they can track who requested it, what it was for. I would think just dropping a customization off menu maintenance to track who clicked on it. Then when they turn around and click in, you can have a data directive. Hey, they opened it. Go ahead and make the record.
Right.
So Dan's also got a suggestion of create a method directive on dynamic query for execute post-processing and write it to a UT table. That's what he's doing. And he logs the menu that's calling the BAQ. It doesn't help with menus without BAQs, but the user specifically said dashboards BAQs and it's working for him.
Okay.
Dan, would you be up for sharing that?
Yeah, Dan, could you, if you're up for sharing it, send that over to me and I'll send it out in the minutes as well.
Unless you wanted to reinvent the whole thing, man.
And
yeah, I
Dan's
want to take the. There was, you know, so for menu items, like for everything, there's a DLL that gets called, right, to actually launch the thing when they click on it. And so to figure out like, okay, how does that work where, you know, what's that base process that calls, you know, whatever DLL it's associated with, and how do you know, something has to know when that gets initiated and put a little hook into there that when it was initiated would then log the name of it and, you know, everything else, and then you could write a report.
Dan said he's up for sharing it. I'll ask him to send it over to me and I'll get it out in the minutes for you too.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. Thanks, guys.
He was just looking up above Dan with Anna.
Oh, what was that?
I think Calvin froze. He just doesn't know it yet.
Yep.
I'll go see if I can knock on his door.
That was interesting. On my end, Fred literally just disappeared.
Oh, it's magic. Watch me pop back in.
Right.
Calvin's going to try and reconnect here. He was talking to himself. I kind of wanted to, since he was on a train of thought, I don't want to jump to the next question here. There he goes. He kicked himself out. So he should be back shortly. Hopefully. Oh, there we lost his screens.
Yep. So he's probably rebooting his machine, I would anticipate.
Yep. While he's there, Dan, you had your hand raised. Did you have anything else? I got you unmuted.
No, I was just going to just replying
Awesome.
to that use case.
Okay, I'm going to lower your hand then. Trying to keep track of hand raises and questions going on and everything here. And we'll do that. Hopefully Calvin will be back shortly. He's back.
Yes, he is.
I got completely booted, but my video camera says I'm still transmitting. So I was like trying to do it through interpretive dance for you guys. Let me go ahead and finish that question that I was on here, if I can go ahead and share my screen, I'll go ahead and make my new person the presenter. And under company maintenance, there is a context bar color down here. So we have the ability to change the color for the theme. You can also put a logo, but this only applies to the Kinetic UI, does not apply to the classic screen. I'm trying to pull out the question panel again to figure out who this was for.
Adam Johnson.
Thanks.
And Adam, I've got you unmuted now. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Hey, I had another question actually. When you're looking at the order entry screen on the release, the from, in the help it says that should be where it's shipping from. It seems when we try to use that from different warehouses, it doesn't change. So what we're trying to do is have, and I think it's because we need multi-site, but what we're trying to do is have it go from one warehouse to another to actually ship out.
That should already be working that way. When you print the sales order pick list, it should say that's the warehouse you should pull it from. It's not updating your sales order pick list, or I think the fulfillment workbench. Fulfillment workbench should be doing it too.
So fulfillment workbench still defaults to the site config warehouses. So let's say warehouse 2 has 0 inventory in it. Warehouse 1's got our inventory. We want it to ship out of warehouse 2. They put that on the order release. They'll go through fulfillment workbench, release it. In the material queue, it still defaults to going out of the shipping warehouse.
Tim is asking if you need to do a plant transfer first.
They're in one plant. They're just shipping from different warehouses, one plant.
And that's what I'm wondering is if we need to go to multi-site or not. It seems like it should be working. I guess once they go through fulfillment workbench, most of our pickers are just going through the material queue directly. How would they know that that's supposed to go to that other plant if it's defaulting to the shipping warehouse?
That's why it shouldn't be. It should stay with what you put on the order. I'm looking if there's a way to override it.
So I guess even in that case, how would it get brought over to the other warehouse?
Your fulfillment request should say, make these parts for this warehouse. Because that's where the demand record is for. 5 pieces from warehouse B, not warehouse A. Now, if there's no inventory in there, you should get a transfer that says, hey, you should move inventory over to it.
And maybe that's the part we're missing. I guess where would we look to see that systematic transfer to say, hey, you need to put inventory from 1 to 2?
Do you have this set up? Sorry. So the shipping warehouse and bin should come from the sales order, and that's where they're putting it. So I'm saying your customer service is probably putting this on the order?
Today they pretty much do it all of one, but we're trying to do this. So we're kind of testing it out, but you're in site config?
Yep. Site config modules inventory general. There's a checkbox that default the order shipping warehouse and bin, not the part primary.
We could try those. It is not checked for us.
So it's probably going back to the part default, not following where the demand was set to pull from.
Okay, so if we set this and the order says warehouse 2, when they go to pick it, would it actually say in that pick, would it be from warehouse 1 to 2 then?
You would see pull this from warehouse 2. If there's not enough inventory, you should have a suggestion to move the inventory from one warehouse to the other.
So where would that suggestion come up?
The material queue.
Okay, we can play that out.
Like, I thought I remembered seeing that checkbox somewhere. I did.
All right, thanks.
And then I do have a question, or Bryce, you have your hand raised. I've got you unmuted if you want to ask your question. Are you there, Bryce?
It looks like I'm still muted.
There you go.
We hear you. We should have let him spin.
This is actually Kevin. I just work with Bryce, so we're sitting and watching the same session. I saw there were a few questions about the emails on the auto print. I do have a data directive that just uses the custom code that you can set the send to address with variables and everything. If anybody wants that, I can forward it on to you also, Fred.
Yes, if you'll send that over to me, I'll get it out in the minutes, certainly.
Yeah, the one I have is specifically for the sales order acknowledgement, but if you change the service caller, then it should work for most of the out of the box forms.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Wow. I think we're turning everybody into Coda Bears out there, because it's been like, we'll share this with you. We'll share this with you. This is awesome.
All those little bears you keep sending out at Christmas are converting people.
Awesome.
I can't take too much credit. I took most of it from the user forum, so.
Did we have any more, Fred? I know we're a little over time. I'm not going to complain about it, but just wanted to make sure.
I think we've got everybody in the questions area, and I don't see any hands raised, so I think we've got them all.
Wow. So just so that people know, we have a little bit anomalous of a meeting this time. How many people were there, Fred?
We had over 300 registered, and at time we were over 200 and some attending, but people were coming and going, so.
We are growing. This is a good thing.
Yes.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and keep growing. We're working a little bit closer with the EUG, trying to get this spread out to all people, not just the user groups here, but anybody that's part of the EUG. At the end of the meeting, when's your survey pop up for people, Fred?
I believe when you log out of the meeting, and as well, you'll probably get an email tomorrow. So if you would fill out the survey, it rates the presentations, the presenters, finds out if the topics were useful, and also gives you an opportunity. There is a question on there, what can we do to make things better? As well as what topics do you want to see in upcoming meetings? And we do take that information for the upcoming topics specifically and try to find people to do presentations on those. So it's your chance to get your problem solved, figure things out, send them over to us and get involved.
Awesome. And our next meeting, April, is for the local Chicagoland group. And then our next virtual is coming up in June.
That's
so we'll
April.
See how that goes. Pardon?
That April one, is that at the golf course or Shriners again? Or?
Yep, exactly. I think Jane got it at the golf course.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you guys this time, since it's not at the same time as the Wisconsin one.
We're trying to coordinate better.
We are trying to get the EUG because the members, I guess the elected body from the EUG couldn't attend today's meeting because they were using the webinar from the EUG to run the Texas user group today. So they couldn't be in two go-to meetings at the same time. We are trying to find a better way to schedule this so that, yes, we'll kind of have the virtual meetings not be the same as regional meetings so that people aren't stepping. And we'll try and coordinate that Illinois doesn't do their meeting the same day as Wisconsin.
Yeah, obviously difficult, not perfect. I was so looking forward to the first in-person again, you know, in 2 years. And so I was like, all right, sign up for Wisconsin. Then I was like, oh, the Code of Earth one was the same day. Darn it.
I know, it was just kind of weird. I'm like, unfortunately, yes. And I did not know that Wisconsin was running the same day. But had the schedule up here. June 15th will be our virtual. November will be the final virtual. At that November meeting at the end of the year again, we'll elect the dates for the future year, and that's what we'll coordinate with the EUG so that they know when are we running the virtual for everyone. See, a whole lot of change. And Fred, you are right. It has not been 30 years. It's only been 29. Awesome. Good to go. Any final questions before we depart here? I hadn't seen anything pop up in the question window, but then my session crashed earlier, so I'm not trusting what I see.
Nope, we're good.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody stay warm. I know we're getting hit by snow here in Chicago. Hopefully it'll go away.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks everybody.
everybody.
And again, try to fill those surveys out for us.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.